Welcome to a special edition of the Tonny and Tim Show, the Fantasy Edition. I'm Tony, and I'm joined by a very special guest, Brian Mugwanya, who is currently leading the standings in the TnTLive Premier League. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you, Tony.
Very interesting. Brian, how long have you been playing fantasy? You seem to be so good at it.
I've played fantasy for 4 seasons now. This is my 4th season. But each season, I go a rank higher.
You definitely must be climbing every season. Brian here also is currently 4th in the Uganda Fantasy Premier League there. He has been leading that table as well. He just slipped in a couple of weeks. Very shortly, he's now finding himself in number 4 there, but he's currently number 1 in the TnT Premier League. What goes into a Brian team? What's the thinking every week in and out?
Every week in and out, I basically try to look at the teams that I'm having, but I also try to look forward. When I'm planning or trying to make a substitute or transfer, I look at 3 game weeks ahead.
3 game weeks ahead. That means you choose a captain to take like a month.
Not a captain in particular. You wouldn't want to bring in, let's say, player for just 1 game week and again transfer the player out. So when I'm choosing, I basically look at, let's say, Tottenham.
Look for longevity.
Yes, Tottenham. Which games do they have in the next 3 weeks? Such that if I bring him in, I do not make a transfer afterwards. I try to limit the number of transfers.
To be at least for a month. Yes. Very quickly, let's look at your team, Brian. In the goal, you have Alisson, who is a goalkeeper that's been having a very wonderful season. This particular season, he has a number of clean sheets. Was that the thinking at the beginning of the season?
At the beginning of the season, I started with the Man City keeper, Ederson, because it's difficult to score Man City.
And he had also proved himself last season.
And then after a couple of game weeks, I decided to change to Alisson because with Man City, they score quite a number of goals, and it would be injustice to waste a spot on a keeper, yet you can have 3 attacking players from Man City.
What you just said right there, another point when you're choosing a goalkeeper, does someone want to think about a goalkeeper that will be attacked but will also be trying to make a number of saves? Because when you look at Ederson, he's probably not as attacked as the other goalkeepers in the league.
It depends.
And Alisson is probably more attacked if you look at how Liverpool plays.
It depends on the strategy that you want to employ. If, for example, you want to go with a cheap keeper, you'll need to have 2 cheap keepers such that you can do rotation. But if you want a premium keeper who is going to cost you a fortune, you'll need to get one that is actually going to produce results in terms of clean sheets from a top team.
Let's look at your bench here. You have Button. You have a player, Button, a Brighton and Hove goalkeeper, who hasn't probably played a single game this season. He's on 0 points for the entire season. But is that the thinking? You want to get in a goalkeeper that you probably may not be using? That's
the thinking. Because if I'm to use the second strategy that I told you, it means you'd have to have 2 goalkeepers, maybe at 4.5 each, such that you can switch them in and out in case of tough fixtures. But the other option is to get a solid premium keeper, who will get those clean sheets even during the tough times.
Very interesting. If you look at your formation right now, you're playing a 4-3-3 formation, which is probably not a formation that many fantasy players go for. Not a lot of fantasy managers would have 4 people at the back. What's the thinking there?
I usually play 3 defenders at the back, unless there is an injury, hence an automatic substitution. But usually I go for 3 at the back, because it's not easy to get the clean sheets when
it's very complicated.
Other defenders from the smaller teams, if we may say.
4 back, a 4 doesn't have a single centre back. You have there at Crystal Palace, Kyle player, Marcos Alonso, who is a player that we probably haven't seen the best of him yet this season, and of course Ryan Bennett from Wolves. What's the thinking, getting only wing backs?
The thinking when you're defenders, midfielders. You want to get someone who has opportunities to join the attack. So if you're to go for a centre back, I would suggest you go for one that...
A Virgil van Dijk.
Yes. Or some...
Kyle Walker is a player in particular that probably has not also played as well as we would have thought this particular season for Manchester City. But Manchester City are certainly on top, so you expect him to get some number of points every season, every time he gets the chance to play. They are very interesting, and of course Marcos Alonso, Chelsea lost in midweek there, so it's very interesting to see him there. He has 0 points for the last game week. In midfield you have Shaqiri, Martial and Richardson. 3-man midfield with no centre midfielder.
Yeah.
Still the same thinking.
It's still the same thinking. You cannot get a defensive midfielder.
Fernandinho.
You cannot. No. It will be injustice to yourself, because you'd want someone who can assist or score.
What about a person that can shut out the attack from the other team?
No. That's not the kind of thinking you're supposed. No.
Tackles and ball winning.
I don't look at that.
N'Golo Kantes are not players that can be good for fantasy team. And in up front you have Captain Harry Kane, Anatovic and Jimenez from Wolves. Are these the top 3 attackers in the Premier League?
They are not the top 3 right now, but I just got Kane last game week.
He hasn't been in your team?
He hasn't been in my team. I had Sergio Aguero since the start. But because of December fixtures and the rotation to have with Man City players, I decided to get a striker who is nailed.
Who is probably in his team.
Yes, so that's the reason for Harry Kane.
What a choice there, and of course points in the last game week. They are very, very interesting, and things get interesting on the bench. Like we said, you have Burton there, a player for Brighton that hasn't kicked the ball this whole season. You have Robertson, another player who is marauding on left back. Is a player that probably a lot of people will be having him in their starting lineups, and probably even
he's in my starting lineup. It's just because he didn't play in the previous game week, so there was an auto substitution.
And that's how Bennett got into the team.
Yes.
And of course you have Raheem Sterling, a player who has been racking up a lot of points as well for teams that have been making him as a captain even. He's a player that's been getting a lot of points. If you're to look, he's on 104 points already for the season there, Raheem Sterling. He's currently on your bench, but that's because probably you talked about the rotation policy at Manchester City. And of course you have El Neni, another player who hasn't kicked a ball for us now on the bench. Tell me about this. Is it the amount of money that you have to, you have to put in these placeholders?
My sort of thinking is
you need a strong first 11.
With fantasy, you need a first strong 11. That's where I start from. First strong 11 with game in, game out in their teams. Then from there, I can have maybe a couple of other guys who play in smaller teams on my bench.